At 3 hours and 20 minutes in the morning, on the 28th of August 2025, in the waters of the Temryuk Bay, hidden deep in the rear where Moscow was certain that danger could not exist by definition, the frigate Buyan-M was moored at Pier Number 2. The warship, whose cost was estimated at nearly $80 million, had just returned from a combat mission. It had participated in the launch of Kalibr cruise missiles against the territory of Ukraine. On its deck, like in a typical movie scene, a group of officers stood raising glasses of vodka, celebrating the successful mission. The ship was refueling, cooling the engine, and preparing to reload 8 new Kalibr NK missiles, each of them costing more than $1 million and capable of flying nearly 1,000 miles, reaching any Ukrainian city from Kyiv to Lviv. A relaxed atmosphere reigned on the ship. The duty shifts were resting. Some soldiers had already dozed off at their posts. And none of them even suspected that just 6 miles away, skimming across the water surface, a strange motorboat with a seemingly peaceful appearance was sliding forward. On paper, a fishing vessel. In reality, a combat unit. Inside, under fishing jackets and Russian caps, hid 2 Ukrainian fighters from the 73rd Naval Special Operations Center. And instead of boxes of squid and herring, in the cargo bay lay 2 kamikaze drones of the Beaver model, each of them loaded with an armor-piercing warhead weighing more than 3 kilograms, equipped with a night camera and navigation that worked without satellite signals, and in just 5 minutes, this unremarkable boat would become the catapult for one of the boldest Ukrainian attacks of the entire war. Everything was happening in the very heart of the zone that Russia considered absolutely protected. Terech Bay was surrounded by multiple lines of defense. The Pantsir S-1 air defense complex, 2 Podlet K-1 radars operating around the clock. This territory was a true aerial fortress. It was believed that no drone could even get close. It would be shot down instantly. But that belief became the fatal mistake. Because the Ukrainians were not trying to break through the radars. They were moving along the very edge, through the dead zone where radio waves cannot see a target, right at the surface of the water. On board the fishing boat, the moment of launch arrived. It was 3 hours and 27 minutes. The distance to the ship was a little less than 3 miles. The Ukrainians quickly pulled the gray tarps off the aft compartment. From there, 2 drones emerged, 4 feet long, with a wingspan of about 5.5 feet. A matte gray body, a low heat signature, completely invisible in the night. The drones were ready. Navigation blocks activated. Both operators simultaneously switched to combat mode and pressed the launch button. From then on, nothing could stop it. Both drones launched from the stern of the motorboat, one after the other, with an interval of less than 1 minute. They flew at ultra-low altitude, barely 2 meters above the water. That was enough to remain invisible to all Russian radars. The entire defense system in the Bay Area was useless. It simply could not see the threat. The boat had done its job, and now everything depended only on the drones. The command post was located underground in the area of the city of Zaporizhia. From there, the operator monitored the image from the camera of one of the drones. On the screen, the antenna of the radar tower. The radar was operating. The ship did not react. Everything was going according to plan. The drone was closing in, less than 1,000 feet, 800, 650. Still, not a single shot, not one defense system had even reacted. It was the perfect corridor. At 3 hours and 31 minutes, explosion. A direct hit at the base of the antenna. A bright flash, and the entire upper part of the superstructure literally blasted apart. Fire shot upward, sparks rained down onto the deck. Fragments of metal structures scattered across the surface of the sea. Navigation went dark. The radar went silent. The entire surveillance system was shut down in 1 second. The command center was in panic. The communications officer was severely wounded. A metal fragment pierced through shattered glass. Electronics failed from overheating. The cabin filled with smoke. The blast shock broke the protection of the equipment. All control paralyzed. The only hope was the close-range air defense system, but it had to be activated manually, and access to the controls was blocked. While the crew scrambled to regain control, from the opposite side a second drone was already approaching, its target, the launch system loaded with cruise missiles. And at that moment, the ship was left completely unprotected. As the crew struggled to stabilize the situation after the first strike, from the port side, at high speed, about 95 miles per hour, the second drone was already closing in. It was headed straight for the center of the deck, exactly where the vertical launchers with 8 loaded Kalibr NK missiles were located. Several of them were already in the active stage of launch preparation. Inside the auxiliary command section, one of the officers shouted, "Low-flying object on the port side!" But it was already too late. The main radar was disabled, optical cameras covered in soot and dust, the panseer was not activated, the system not rebooted. The ship was completely blind, deaf, and defenseless. At exactly 3 hours and 32 minutes, the drone slammed directly into the open launch silo number 3. The explosion was powerful. The hatch of the launcher blew off like the lid of a cauldron. A column of black smoke shot into the sky. Part of the center deck was ripped apart. Steel plates bent outward, debris scattered for dozens of meters. Fire instantly engulfed neighboring compartments. The automatic firefighting system triggered. Valves all over the deck began to activate. Carbon dioxide was released under pressure, trying to smother the flames. But it was already too late. The fire broke into the electrical section. The launch module burned out. 2 neighboring launchers overheated. Inside, panic spread. No one knew whether the remaining missiles would detonate. The ship began to list, first by 3, then by 5 degrees to starboard. That meant either the technical compartment was damaged or flooding had begun. The sailors rushed to seal the compartments. Equipment was switched to manual mode. The ship did not sink, but by this moment, it had already completely lost both offensive and defensive capabilities. The internal encrypted communication channel of the Black Sea Fleet received an urgent message. Warship B-38 attacked. Radar destroyed. Launch system damaged. Request evacuation and towing to the port of Taman. Only 7 minutes after the beginning of the attack, the Buyan-M was completely disabled and was forced to leave the operational zone. This ship had been considered Russia's main strike asset in the Sea of Azov. In the narrow, shallow waters, only such frigates could launch long-range missiles while remaining hidden from surveillance. And now, at least one of them was out of the game. A few hours after the strike, the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine published video footage taken from one of the drones. First, it showed the precise hit on the radar tower. Then, the explosion in the center of the deck. The ship was listing, fire raging, with no trace of the air defense system functioning. The video was confirmed by Naval News, Kyiv Post, Business Insider, and the Kyiv Independent. Independent experts stated, this was not just a tactical victory, this was a serious shift. An operation carried out smoothly, quickly, with minimal costs demonstrated. Even deep in Russian rear areas, there were no longer any guaranteed safe zones. And if earlier Russia believed that the bay was a secure rear where it could calmly reload Kalibr missiles and head for a new strike, now everything had changed. For just a few $1,000s, Ukraine destroyed the combat capability of a warship worth tens of millions. And this is only the beginning. It now becomes obvious. Naval warfare no longer looks the same as before. There is no longer a need for huge aircraft carriers or missile cruisers worth hundreds of millions. It is enough to have a pair of fighters, a single boat, and the right moment. What was once called high-tech warfare is no longer about satellites and ballistic missiles. It is about intellect, about stealth, about the ability to see the weak point in a seemingly perfect defense. And if such a strike is possible in the deepest, most heavily guarded bay of the Russian fleet, then where exactly is the boundary of safety? Today, a frigate. Tomorrow, something greater. And Russia understands this perfectly well.